Okay, while I was showing you about some of these transfer molds with inserts, I thought I'd show you this one that makes a carb socket for the MZ-202 engine, which is another carburetor flange socket, but they use a very big flange. That, believe it or not, this flange bolts on the side of the cylinder. It's just a piston port, two-cycle engine, but this particular steel insert, again, you hold it by the edges or out here where the screw holes are. I don't think that makes much difference, but I try not to touch anywhere in here where I want that rubber to stick good inside there. So, same thing. You'd lay this right on top of those pins, and this is my key on this. This one has a key on there. This is going to be the cavity half, as you can see. The last time this was run, of course, before I shut down and quit running it, I spray it with release agent and let it cool down slowly in the press. Well, the heat from that press bakes that release agent on there. Some sort of a resin bakes it on there so the rubber doesn't stick. Makes it easy to get out of there. So then I put this against the key and lower that down on there. Then this here is the pot part of the mold, and this has a core on it. Again, the core is removable with a socket head cap screw, so I can make a different one of these, or maybe one of the ones I've already made would fit. But as long as the heights of both halves of the core add up to the same overall height, it'll work. And so I could change this to maybe mount a different carburetor on there. Somebody told me some of these carburetors don't use a Bing 54. Some of the MZs use a Mikuni carburetor. And if that's the case, I may end up having to make one of these inserts or find one in there that would have the configuration on here to fit a Mikuni carburetor. So these molds are a little different. I mean, as I kept making these over time, I started trying to find ways that were easier to make them. I decided that milling slots in them and everything takes a lot of extra aluminum and uses up some of my cavity space. And anyways, I got the bright idea of putting pieces of steel on the side for my pry bars in order so I can get it apart like this. And of course I started out using solid pieces of steel, and then I found some tubing. That's actually, structural tube that's steel. It's just steel with a couple of 1032 screws holding it, but that seems to do fine just for getting it apart, especially one that doesn't come up, it's not going to be hard to get apart. And again, in this case, this is one that uses the pusher for the pot. Would be the same one that I use for making the Jabiru carburetor socket. So if I put that on there, you can see that's going to do that one. And here's the Jabiru carburetor socket. I'll show you that one. This doesn't have any metal insert. It just makes a large rubber tube. This is the cavity here to fit on a Jabiru's, used on 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder Jabiru aircraft engines to mount the carburetor. The carburetor's a Bing 64, so I knew what size to make a lot of this stuff on there to fit the Bing carburetor. So that was easy to make, that one. So, and if you want to see the pot, there you go. Like I say, I'll spray that up with Teflon before, when I shut it off. I spray it, and then that makes the pusher go in there easy. Most of the time I'm using these things out of steel. I'm also putting little, I don't know if you can see them or not in that camera, but there's little grooves. I just machined just light little grooves, kind of like piston ring grooves in there. Just a little V-shaped cut, because I think that helps keep the rubber from leaking out so fast. The rubber kind of flows in that groove, and then because it's sitting in there, it kind of cures, and then it acts like a little piston ring, and I get a lot less leakage of rubber coming out of here. But I use steel. The aluminum, of course, right now is very cold, so this thing here is kind of tight going in there. I don't know that I want to put it in the press. I think I set this in the press a little bit and let this warm up before I put that in there, because it seems like it's a little tight. Where this one's, some of my fits I get pretty close. So, but this one here, I think I'd warm it up just a bit on the press. This piece before I try to put that in there. It wouldn't take much, just if it was up to 150 degrees, something you could still handle, that thing will drop right in there. Then aluminum expands and contracts a lot. So anyways, that's how those parts are run.